Says we're live.
Okay, I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting of April 21st to order. Members present are Mr. Ivy and Ms. Earlston and Tom Fellner. If there are, could I have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous regular meeting in March 17th?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the March 17th. meeting.
Ms. Earlston makes the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, and the March 17th, 2021 regular meeting minutes are approved. Next is the approval of the agenda. There are several discussion items tonight. Are there any additions to this? If not, I would like a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
And
Mr.
I-
Ivy made the motion.
And I will second that motion.
Ms. Earlston seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the agenda is approved as presented. First item is discussion of ordinance 2021-37. So Ms. Ward, can you want to take this, or the mayor?
I'll jump in real quick. This is and there was a little bit of, I guess, in card parlance, the table talk before we started about this with Julie. What this does is take the original grant portion with the smaller loan, okay, and then adds in, I think that's the right verb, adds in that $850,000. This is the one where our previous plan was to use the state infrastructure bank with a 3% loan, and this is with a shorter term, and this is 850, 0%. And what we hope to have when everything is negotiated with the Public Works Commission is a 20-year term. So without like bringing this up and saying attaboy too many times, what I think that will do is reduce our annual debt service from probably in the mid 80s, 80,000 plus, to 40,000 in that range. And I think it makes our portion of the Portland Way project a lot more fundable, and so that's really what that is, y'all. Where'd that come from?
How much?
But that's what the ordinance does, is roll in that 850 into the previously passed ordinance.
So it brings it to 315, is that correct?
No, we already had 315 in a loan, Ms. Earlston. It actually, I don't know if there is a total. You scroll down. It's 185 for grant, and then that 315, and then the 8. There it is. 1165.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
I just think it's I think it's I was real excited when we got this 0% loan. It fits in a lot better going downstream, if you will. To have something that would have, my worry was that at $100,000 a year, let's say, it with the state infrastructure bank, that would crowd out other kind of regular paving. I think this way of funding it at more around 40,000 a year fits in real closely with the money that comes in to the state highway fund, that fund 202. So what I'd like to accomplish here, if we can get this done, is that we would be able to dedicate the income into 202 to that state route expansion repaving. So anyway.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Ivy, Ms. Earlston?
I don't, thank you.
I think I recall having this conversation, and it certainly makes sense to help us finance the project this way with a 0%. loan.
Doc, if I could, please, is this the conversation just picking up from last month where we had the different options of a 0%? I can't remember the other percentages, but I think there were 2 to 3 different options. Is
Yeah.
that, am I thinking of the same
Yeah.
context?
It is the same thing. And,
Okay.
and yes, and what I like about this plan is that there's $120,000 of interest that we won't have to pay.
Right.
So I think it's worth, I'm prone to tinker with stuff all the way to the finish line. I think this tinkering, if you will, is it's worth the time. And so I think it's I'd encourage you to push it along if you agree.
Mhm.
Great. May I have a motion to put forth ordinance 2021-30? I'm sorry, Julie, I obliterated the number. What's the number of the ordinance?
37.
2021-37.
Thank you. I'd like a motion to put this ordinance onto full council for Tuesday.
I'll make the motion to move 2021-37 onto full council.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion.
I will second that.
Ms. Earlston seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0, and the ordinance will be placed on full council's agenda next Tuesday. Second discussion item is more CARES Act money.
Yeah, I think that I'll just go ahead and keep yakking. I think there isn't more money, but there is a balance. And I believe Gail or Eunice, after you you assume that the money that the fire department has requested kind of through another committee goes through council. Maybe I'm misspeaking here, but there's a request kind of in the process of about 49,000 for a new set or an extra set of turnout gear for the fire department. When you take that off the balance of CARES Act funds that we have, it's, I think, in the neighborhood of 350, maybe in that range. And so if Gail or Eunice, and so what I wanted to do is spend a few minutes, if you will, collecting our thoughts about what do we want to do with those dollars, noting that they are the more restrictive money as compared to this next wave of money that will come in but we've got, somebody will help me on that, I think close to 350,000, even after you deduct the request from the fire department.
Mayor,
Yeah,
I believe it puts us at a little over 378,000.
there you go.
And that number will fluctuate a little bit as long as there's money in there. It does draw interest as well, but some months it loses interest just depending on where we're at with our accounts in the market. So it will fluctuate a little bit, but not a lot
Okay.
with the interest. But I
Thanks.
don't have access to the reports here, so that is by memory.
Just one point of clarification. When I introduced this, I said more CARES Act money. I didn't mean additional money. I meant more discussion. So
Yeah, I'm
just
sorry.
let me-
Yeah, so
just want to straighten that point out. Second point, what are the restrictions of this? This is still first round.
yeah, last year's money.
Yeah. What are the restrictions, and where do you think it should be pigeonholed for the best use?
They are targeted. I think what I know for sure is all of the things we did last year are still eligible. So there's some thought that we just reinforce what we're doing. I think it's next week, the 28th. Again, we're providing the money to have that food distribution. So we could continue to do that. I you asked me, I would like to try and do the utility refund rebate again. I don't know exactly how we, sounds like watch too much TV, how we re-message that so that more people utilized it. But I think that's getting that money out to as many people in the community with both the food and the and with the utility. I think those are two ideas I've got, Doc.
I think, I cannot believe that the break on a little bit of utility money was such a dud.
Yeah,
For all of the crying that has been done over the decades of
yeah.
utility right, and rightly so, the response was ridiculous. So you're right. We need to, I don't know, maybe tie $100 bills onto balloons and release them into the neighborhood.
It is frustrating. I think honestly, what the feedback we got was more of it was coming from the right place. If you had, like many of us, we didn't miss a beat. Most people on this call, our revenue wasn't affected. We didn't have a direct impact that was devastating financially on COVID. So people shied away from that. So I'm not sure we can fix that exactly with language, but I do think, that's I believe a good use of it.
I see.
If I could, Dr. Fellner and Mayor, if I recall, we only had about 1,000 rooftops applied for that $100 credit. So if we're looking at $275,000 if the same thing repeats, and I'm not sure if we need $275,000 going to a food bank. So it sounds like we need to be a little more creative than what we're even suggesting now. Are there any other options that are available other than the utilities rebate and food bank option?
Well, I don't know. Tammy's got a point here.
Well, I don't know if I have a point, but I do agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that the wording, I think, like you said, it was coming from a good place. I think a lot of people thought, oh, I don't qualify for that. So they didn't apply. So possibly wording could help. And I just want to add too, that I'm really glad we're having this discussion now and not scrambling at the end of the year, with this money that we don't have to send back. So I'm glad that we're talking about this now.
Yep.
And so like Aaron was saying, that's still going to leave us with quite a bit more money. We talked about first responders the other day, the police, the fire. I don't know about nursing homes in the area. I don't know. I mean, if any of those things, that's just kind of what pops to mind.
Right. And, I think all that is like in the discussion. The one thing that we may want to go back to, and I'm glad Thomas is on tonight, is that we tried to reimburse, and it probably fell outside the rules, the stormwater fund. I think we'll all recall that we had this 90-day where we didn't charge anyone, and the stormwater fund, which is one of the more healthy funds, took a bit of a hit. So we may want to go back and think through if there's a different way to accomplish something similar. It had to, I know with the utilities, it had to be associated with individual customers who were impacted. So, that's out there again as, something to consider. That actually may be a better use of this new money, which may be more flexible on reimbursing and not the CARES Act money is kind of restrictive there. So I see Thomas shaking his head.
Yep, agree with you totally, Mayor.
So that's that fund, we don't want to have that of our utility funds. That's a pretty healthy one. I would hate to see that become another sick fund. So.
Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, Doc.
Yeah, I've mentioned before rent assistance. I didn't hear that mentioned tonight. I think rent assistance is probably one of the better uses of that fund. And the utility rebate, because there's a lot of people that could use rent assistance
Or mortgage assistance.
or mortgage, yeah, or both.
Yeah. Great suggestion. I'm not sure how you limit that. But for instance, the county has been distributing federal dollars through this thing called PRC. I don't want to get too far off, but you know, there is rental assistance through the county that may help us. That's a local plan that may help us calibrate, if you'll accept that term, you know, how much and how eligibility is determined.
I was thinking, I don't know if we could help, if we could fund like community action, because they do a lot of rent assistance with X amount of dollars, just give them X amount of dollars to use for rental assistance for people that, you know, that needed to come in down there.
Yes, they do, and they're already in the business. So that's
Yeah.
like, those are two more like check marks, and that seems like an idea worth pursuing more. And
You know, they could just disperse it until the money was gone, and that would be it, whatever we decided that.
Mhm.
That was
I'll check that. We will check that out and see how that fits in with any rental assistance programs they have. If that's all right with the committee.
I would just, if I could just bring up a point that I'm dealing with every day. Many of these folks that have lost jobs are now qualified and receiving up to $600 a week in state and federal unemployment benefits. So I would just like to bring that up, just to exercise caution for a large donation. I know for a fact, just not being able to staff my community, that it is being taken advantage of. And I'm not trying to stereotype, but I assure you that it's happening. So just dumping a large sum of money into community action for well-bodied people that are able to go to work but are choosing not to. And I'm not trying to, you know, create a stink or anything, but gosh, it's happening. I mean, it is happening. There are more people, there are more jobs available now than there has been in a long time. And it's not just my industry or the healthcare industry, but so many industries just cannot fill positions because there's no labor force, because a lot of people unfortunately are taking advantage of the situation that we're in right now with this COVID going on through federal and state. That's 300 from the Fed, 300 a week from the state. And I would just like to bring that up for consideration. Thank you. As far as making this an income-based situation.
Yeah,
Distributing equally to all who apply for it. Because even though,
one thing that sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, my wife lost a job this year. I've lost a job this year. I mean, our income was definitely affected, but you know, we got back out into the workforce as quickly as we could. And I'm just saying, you know, that is not happening across the board. I think that's a fair statement. So I would not be overly inclined to just want to dump a huge sum of money, but just distribute it equally through a utilities fund, or, you know, like a mortgage relief or a rent relief. But like you said, Mayor, that's community action's business, and they deal with this every day. So I know that's probably not a very popular opinion.
I follow what you're saying, and without getting into a debate over that, we'll take a look at how we fit in with what community action is doing, and how, because sitting on that board, just without like prolonging the discussion, sitting on that community action board, you realize this same phenomenon. They have an unprecedented amount of money coming their way through this federal stimulus stuff. I had a good conversation with our superintendent today, and they're looking at spending a lot of money that's coming from the feds to try to offset. So there is a lot of money at community action. I think that's part of assessing how or how much, because if they're having, quote unquote, trouble giving away the money that they've got, then we, may want to be cautious about that. So.
Fair point. Thank you.
Real quickly, Doc, and we can, in terms of the discussion, I think it's good to get the thoughts going, and that was the purpose of the conversation. I don't want to have this panic at the end. Another issue worth, I think, thinking about is the issue of transportation. And that while there are some people who may be using unemployment because that makes them the most money, I think there are other people at the entry level that this chronic, and I think now more acute, lack of transportation is something that we could consider. So, what form that would take, I think, just for discussion, I think that we could negotiate a contract with SCAT to provide some sort of more regular service for, all people. It's not just low income. I mean, heck, I could get a ride on it if it was there. So it's both fare box and I think that service would be something to consider. It may catch on, it may not, but I think all of us that when we go to the grocery, I don't want to open that can of worms, but we just get in our car and go somewhere. And there's a lot of folks that it isn't like that. And whether they were, bumped off the bottom rung of the ladder because of COVID, or they're sort of chronically transportation limited, I'll just stop the bleeding heart stuff and say, I think it's something to consider. I think we can make it eligible. And, that's all I had to say on that. I won't milk the free center with how we could run special buses out to the free center. I'll save that for another night when I need to play on that. So anyway, thanks for listening. I think that's just something to put in this under consideration, as to use some of this 380,000 or thereabouts to see what kind of service that we could get, for more regular public transportation service.
I agree. I think ideas presented this evening were really some food for thought, and of course we need to stay within the parameters that's attached to the money. But I think that Mr. Palmer can get super creative and stay within that. And I agree with Mr. Ivy that you just don't want to write a check to a charity. You want to have some accountability to it. And as Ms. Earlston said, we don't want to be taking the cash out in December and burning it because we don't want to give it back. So we've got some time, and if there's more rolling in, yeah, let's take advantage of it while they're still printing the money. Okay. So
yeah.
That was not fair. I apologize.
I don't know. Sounds more like me, but anyways, Tammy's on. I had a question or something.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we do keep this conversation rolling. So
Yes.
We need to make sure we revisit this. And then the other thing is just what the parameters are, so we can have an idea of, what we kind of need to what parameters we kind of need to stay in. I don't know if there's something that could be sent out just to let us know, like, okay. Just because.
Yeah, it's one of those careful what you ask for, because it gets
That's
kind of
what I'm wondering.
detailed and tedious, but you can look at it. I think it gives you, I think what it's best for, since you mentioned it, is that it gives you an idea of what we probably can't do.
Yeah, that's.
And so
probably-
versus telling you, well, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is in bounds, but it tells you what's more clearly what you're wasting your time if you try to fund, certain stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway.
Good.
Mhm.
Just FYI, everybody, it's snowing again. So just let you know.
Yeah.
At least it's snowing at 112 South Boston. I don't know about anyplace else. Next
All right.
discussion is a debt discussion. So Mayor, you're on a roll, so.
But
let's
you know,
do it.
I'll also like, this is this comes from a conversation or a couple of them that Gail and I have had about whether or not some of those debts, and it is my fault that you don't have, Julie can't pull up a list of all those debts. I honestly thought about it too late this afternoon, but just sort of recall what I'm going to say and then take a look at that list. We'll make sure we get that out there. So there, when you look at that, there are, and everybody was here last year. Each year we have that mid-year debt issuance. My golly, I think last year was 3-point-something million. Okay. A lot of that is long-term, low or very low interest debt in the water utilities. But when you take a look at this, there are several of those debts that say bands, bond anticipation notes. And it's those that I just want to draw your attention to. Some of those, I think, put words in Gail's mouth, but I think some of those we should look at paying down or paying off. And I'll stop after this point. The reason I say that is that the interest that we are paying for that, even though it's, I think, 2-point-something% last year on those bands, we're only earning 1% or 1.5% on our investments. So for general consideration is looking at some of those notes and deciding to use some of that 7 million plus of general fund surplus to reduce those debts. Not getting ahead of myself, but it is conceivable. I think, we'd have to set it up correctly, but it's conceivable that you could use some of the 401, that capital improvements money, to assist in paying down that debt. So without muddy in the water, the discussion I wanted to generate tonight is to look at some of those bands and deciding whether or not we should pay down some of those. So that's the kickoff, and just, so I don't know what the reaction is initially, or a year ago, we paid off those notes on the stormwater, on the sanitary sewer part of what I call the Ralphie's project. Okay, that was a smaller debt. A previous auditor paid that off. We all voted to do that. We still have, gosh, I wish my memory's failing me on this. We still have a couple $100,000, I think, in those bands for that same section of Portland Way. That might be one that we would pay off, relatively small, get that out of the way, because we're talking about incurring more debt for that long north section of Portland Way. So that's the kind of review analysis. I don't know. I mean, that's too fancy, but that's what I wanted to do, Doc, is to introduce that. And then I know Gail maybe has some thoughts.
No, you covered it pretty well. A lot of our interest that we're earning and the interest we're paying out is pretty much a wash. And I think in some cases, we're even earning a little bit less than what we're paying out.
Right. So that's,
So will
I
you and
Mhm.
will you and Gail sit down and kind of make some decisions on which ones would be best, and then present it to council? I'm assuming, I know that's what you did with Brian last year.
Yeah.
On the smaller projects. So I'm looking forward to that. That's always a good idea and good use of money.
Well, none of us are born to live forever or be in office forever. And I think it's an overriding thought to try to pay down debts without burdening folks in the future. So, I don't think we'll change the course of the city of Gallion's financing, but we can improve it a little bit while we have such a well-earned and almost enviable general fund surplus. I'll knock on wood, but as you check around, we have a real nice general fund balance, and we want to protect that, but we also may be carrying some debt. So we'll get out to you, and my apologies again that you don't have that list to kind of a la carte what we should just let roll, go pay the interest, pay it down 1/10, and others that we should just wipe out. And so it isn't like nagging for the next 8 years or something. So.
Right.
Just a quick note for that list, Mayor, they could all look back to the last recovery plan that was done with the state, and it gives a complete breakdown of each amortization schedule by year that would show the balance due and everything on all the debt, with the exception of the new ones that we've taken on since that one was created. So that would be a good reference point for everybody to look at as well.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. And I would say if you don't have a copy of that, sort of shoot us a message early, and we can bounce out that if you don't have it, we can bounce out a summary of what that is, what's involved in the recovery plan.
Would that email be best to go to you, Mayor, Gail, or Eunice, or all
No,
three of
send
you?
that to Matt or Tasha.
Okay.
If you want it, like any good office, if you want to get a quick turnaround, talk to the staff.
Okay, thank
The boss is, my head's in the clouds trying to figure out how to fund the free center. So anyways, take a look at that. I'm certainly just joking, but yeah, we'll get it to you. If you'd like to see that summary, we'll get it to you.
Good. Any other questions? Mr. Ivy, Ms. Earlston?
No, so what, could we just send a message? You were saying, like, could we send it to Gail or Eunice to get that?
Yeah, if you want to. I mean,
Yeah,
they've
we-
got it in any place. I don't want to. Yeah,
All right, thanks.
sure.
Next discussion item is elected official salaries. I had Julie put this on the agenda. It's been a discussion for a couple of years. And tonight, I wanted to present this as just an introduction. And we all got a copy. Julie sent out the 2019 Ohio Municipal League survey of salaries of all the municipalities in Ohio. Obviously, the comparison of Galleon to, we have to narrow it down to populations and economic entities of our size. So the list is exhausting, but, and so it's going to take some work for us to look at it and make some decisions. If we're so inclined to make some changes to this, we need to be aware that if we do not act by the deadline of petitions for election, then we are, that's not going to happen for another year because we as a legislative body cannot give ourselves a pay raise. So and that's why, so I wanted to start with the April meeting. I expect this to go into May with some further questions, some numbers suggested, and perhaps into June, which will give us time, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Palmer, to put forth legislation and still have plenty of time to meet that deadline in August for petitions for reelection.
You're thinking correctly, Dr. Fellner.
Okay.
It technically should be in effect like 5 days before the filing deadline. So,
Right, but that's like the first
Yeah.
week of August, so
Right.
June would be a
Right,
fine
yeah.
target.
August 4th.
right. So,
So
Yeah.
again, this was just an official, we've had discussions. I don't think any of them on the record. So this is the first one that's on the record for that. Again, no specifics. I don't want to turn this into a, there's no room for just in detailed discussion this evening, just bringing the idea and get the momentum going. Next item, are there any questions concerning the Aaron or Ms. Earlston?
Well, the only question I have, Doc, is we have 65 pages in this email from cities, from the size of Cleveland and Columbus.
Mhm.
Is there any possibility, Julie, that we could highlight or look into on this 65-page list, highlight the communities that are of equal or approximately equal size to Galleon, a population?
yeah, I can do the
12,000 or
equal
under?
size. Sometimes,
great.
even if they're equal size, you don't know that their economic situation may be totally different. They could have,
Sure,
a GM plan or whatever,
sure.
or, but,
Aaron, you can also highlight your computer screen.
Oh, I just didn't have time to
Just
go through 65 pages of stuff.
I
So
hear you, I hear you. It's a daunting
Thanks, Doc.
document. The other, yes, Ms. Earlston?
Do we have any idea when last pay raise was given for any of these?
Well, we've not had one since the form of government was established, the new form of government.
right
So-
after we did raise the mayor and the auditor, I think.
You raised that. Those were
Yeah.
set by council before the election.
Correct.
Right. And then they were
That would be
raised
about
afterward.
How
Yeah.
many years ago?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, 8 years ago.
Yeah, and 13, I think.
Yeah,
So
it's been a
Late
while.
13.
The other thing, the other bit of information that I've asked Matt Eichelberry to provide, and we'll have that for the next meeting, is I've asked him to do a little retrospective research in what the governmental officials under the city manager position, form of government, were paid. Now, for instance, the auditor was not the auditor under that form. It was the finance director.
Right.
Same position, but not an elected position, but a hired position.
And no treasurer. so-
Same way for the treasurer, the city manager, mayor, law director was law director. But again, all of those positions were hired, and their salaries were set by those councils. So I wanted to also provide kind of an apples to apples, comparing Galleon 14, 15 years ago to the present, and those positions. So Matt will have that, and I'm going to ask him to send it to you well before the next finance committee, so you can digest that. That'll be for Aaron a much more comprehensive list.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep, and I can do that with the list. They're supposed to be coming out with the 2021 list here anytime
Oh, good.
because they do it every 2 years.
All right.
It's for the year it comes out. So I'm hoping it comes out, I'll double check when that's supposed to come out.
Good.
Time now, I think.
Great.
So
That'll help
hopefully-
out a lot.
Mhm.
Quick suggestion, if I might, Doc. If I might,
Certainly.
yeah, the schools, of all the data that's collected through the schools, one of the things is we are categorized with 20 other schools based on the size of the population and whatever. So as Julie looks at that, maybe I don't have them off the top of my head, and I doubt if Tammy remembers that, but they collect data and compare us to, I'm just going to say this, I don't even think it's accurate, but Bell Fountain, or they
Okay.
compare us to other communities. I think that's really what Aaron was kind of looking
Right.
for is,
Yeah.
Yeah,
similar communities. And so
Right.
I don't know if you
I
look
think
at
this-
that and say, well, they're no more like that, then But we don't want to compare ourselves to Mason, for
Right.
instance, because we're similar population. So that's all I had to.
Yeah,
Good.
I
Had to,
appreciate the clarification. I think the schools are a great place to start, actually, because
Excellent
that
point.
gives you a
Yeah.
really clear picture.
Okay.
I've got one other issue. It's not
Sure.
exactly related, but if council is going to look at this, one of the things that was sort of chunky, if you'll accept that, it's turned out to be a little bit problematic, is council should look at the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a limitation on benefits for certain of the offices. And I think that's been problematic in, over the last 8 years since it was
Sure.
changed. So maybe
Mhm.
take a look at that in terms of what benefits are afforded to, each of the elective offices, because I think there's some room for improvement there.
Definitely.
Having said that, it's like, man, I'm going to be on Medicare soon, y'all. So I'm not talking about myself in any way.
Mhm.
But I think that's worth looking at. I think everyone in 13 did the best they could. We were still under fiscal emergency. The financial situation was a little less certain than it is now. And so I just take a look at that as you go through it's not only the wages worth looking at, but it's also which offices have what range of benefits. So
Well,
enough said.
the state
Dr.
auditor
Fellner, can I
was,
say something quick?
certainly.
Thank you, Dr. Fellner. I just wanted to mention that I have done this in the past, just glanced at some other communities. And what I did see was on several occasions, the fact that a community has their own municipal electric system, which is basically a multi-million-dollar business in and of itself,
Mhm.
has been used to bump up elected official salaries a little bit higher than cities that don't have them. And I just think that AMP is a great place to look for that, but
Mhm.
that is a consideration as well.
Well, as I recall, when the transition was approved by council and the voters, that the state auditor was pretty stern in setting those salary parameters. It was kind of,
Mhm.
she was not up for a negotiation to increase them. I always felt that that was a shortfall. So again,
Okay.
this will be wide open. We'll have a good couple of months to nail it down and move on. Speaking of moving on, we're going to go out to anything else? I'm sorry.
No, that's funny though. Good segue.
We are going to go on to the financials and specifically ordinance 2021-38. And Ms. Colleen, would you take the explanation, please?
Certainly. Mayor, I'm going to ask you to jump in on this wherever you would like.
Sure.
So just from our discussion and stuff that we had today with the mayor, this is an appropriation to appropriate into our permanent improvement fund from cash that is there. We would like to appropriate $50,000 into the street other technical services. This is going to be for engineering. Section 3 is to appropriate $131,275 into the water maintenance portion of the improvement fund. And section 4 would appropriate $218,725 into the sewer permanent improvement fund portion. From there, Mayor, I'll let you add into that.
Yeah, thanks, Eunice. I think what this is after last night, we talked about we talked about 629. And then I made reference to the fact that we could use a portion of the capital improvements fund to fund the water and sewer extensions out at the Free Center site. And so that really is what this is. It's not trying to, it's trying to provoke a discussion and move this thing along. I think that at a certain point, that even if it is with a narrow majority, or if it's with a narrow defeat, that we've got to, the city should make this commitment. I had talked with some council members over the several weeks since that happened. And one of the impressions I got, one of the things that a non-committee member actually had said to me is that if there was opposition, it was to using existing city or taxpayers' funds to pay for this. And so while this may not be convincing to everyone, I look at that capital improvement fund as coming from the city being entrepreneurial and taking a bit of a risk in acquiring the HTI property. But with, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week, with that second of 3 payments coming through from our purchaser, it's starting to look like a pretty good idea. So what I want to advance is the discussion of that we stalled on. I think maybe it's that, well, how are you going to pay for this, or how are you going to pay for that in terms of funding the Free Center? And so what I'm attempting to do is introduce a way to pay for the water and sewer. Last night, at Economic Development Committee, we talked about a way to get the roadway more or less totally funded. And so that's really, I wanted to go ahead and advance that discussion. I would say that when you subtract those 3 funds, that we still have more than $250,000 that will be in the fund balance after that. So it's a substantial commitment out of that permanent improvement fund, but I guess basically it boils down to maybe 2/3 of what's in there now. And the very last thing I'll say, Doc, is that I have every confidence that the last payment, which will come, I believe, in 23, but I could be wrong, the last payment on the purchase, I have every confidence that will come into the city as well. So I'm not sure how convincing it was. I'm not trying to move into the salesman mode, but I think this is a good use of the funds. I think it will roll over positively. There was some suggestion, this is social media talk, but people are saying, well, we need to put it in street paving. It's like, maybe I shouldn't say this, but over my dead body, because when we pave it 6 or 7 years out, we'll mill it up. It'll go over to the asphalt plant and it'll be mixed into repaving somewhere else. This investment, whether you love, hate, or are undecided about the Free Center, this would extend this in part with the money we talked about last night, would extend water, sewer, and roadway back to that site. And skeptics, I'll wind down after this. The skeptics may say, well, that'll never get built. But I would say if that is true, kind of doubt it, but we have an awesome platform to do economic development in addition to the Free Center or in lieu of the Free Center. So I think building the road, putting the water and sewer line in is a good idea in and of itself. So thanks for letting me go on for a couple of minutes. So
I would like to just kind of hearken back to meetings early on where the Free Center was discussed. And I know that one of my motions was met with a stony silence. But it was the issue of the Port Authority and the city kind of at odds as to who was going to make the better commitment or commit first. And I always felt like while taxpayer money issue was absolutely legitimate, that the city needed to have some skin in the game and make that commitment. And I felt the infrastructure was where that was going to be the most apparent. And aside from the Freeze Center, infrastructure out in that area, even if it wasn't for the Freeze Fund, would be a good foundation for the development of that area, period, whether or not that it came to. So I think that this 400,000 is a commitment, and combined with what Gary was talking about last night, we have got an excellent start on the infrastructure, which is going to be, it was always the unspoken elephant in the room. The Freeze Center was the poster child, but we all know that, if you don't have a way to get to it, and the toilets don't flush and the lights don't work, then, we're really not going to have it. So I'm for one, encouraged by this. I see Mr. Ivy has his hand up.
You might want to hold on to your seats, everybody. Doc, if you'd have made that motion next week after the news that we heard last night, I would have seconded that motion for the engineering to be done. My simple theory is that until we got to this point or had some better news from the likes of Mr. Frankhouse, who now we're talking about possibly 800,000 of the 1.5 million for the infrastructure possibly being in place before we break ground. So, I am of the opinion that if now would be the time to make that motion again, because I would certainly second that, to get the engineering schematics done and whatever they're called. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but I think after last night, it kind of opened some eyes. It certainly opened mine a little bit more. I would imagine that it opened other members of the council who had those legitimate infrastructure concerns. So I didn't mean to, I hope nobody choked on the water with that, but last night was a page turner for me, for sure, as far as investing a little bit of money, especially with the work that Mr. Frankhouse is doing. And, I have every confidence if the man can raise $462,000 from one grant and the rest of the testimony that he gave last night, I'm sure that he's busy trying to secure other funds as well. So that's all I really need to say. So,
Good, thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Earlston?
Now, were you saying that this is all coming from capital improvement funds, this money, or?
That's the recommendation, yes, is to, it doesn't round out, it doesn't cover all of the engineering, but it goes quite a ways. And what those two numbers represent is the estimated cost of the sewer main line, if you will, and the extension, of the water main line. And then on the sewer, as I said last night, there's a lift station because you're going to have to push the sewage back. And then at the property line, it's a small difference, I think maybe 50 grand. The distance from our 8-inch main, I think there's about $50,000 worth of service lateral, we would call it. And I think it's reasonable to expect the Freeze Center, whether it's ultimately the Port Authority that's the builder or the city or something, that should be in the project cost. We shouldn't pay the lateral cost. We wouldn't in any other development. So that's what that would pay for. Water and the main, and then the same goes with the sewer main. So it's public infrastructure separated from the development itself.
If I could, just one more thing I forgot to mention. I drive to Upper every morning and then take a north up to Finley. And Dr. Fellner, you were spot on. Even if the center does not get built, it'd be nice to have that infrastructure in there, because that section of 30 I consider to still be in its infancy stage as far as potential for economic development, whether it be gas stations, hotels, restaurants. Because if you think about it, between Upper and Worcester, there's simply Mansfield in those exits. So getting that infrastructure in place, regardless if this center is built, which I'm certainly in favor of, and I hope it does get built. So I just wanted to add that as well. I forgot to mention that. Thank you.
Great.
Great spot for electric car charger too. I'm
Absolutely.
clowning around with triplet on that. I'm just trying to have a little fun. It's real important, but
No,
I
I completely agree. That is just another little key step. And I think that is how the city of Galion is going to progress. Small positive steps that build on one another. You know, the idea that a large corporation is going to plop down a $20 an hour manufacturing center and save the town is just not going to happen. If this city is going to grow, we need to do it. And I just feel like every little idea, and that car charger is, I am jazzed about it. I will probably never own an electric vehicle, but doggone it, I know that my children will, and my grandkids are going to. That's just a fact. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I think
Yeah,
that, I
that's
think
true.
that, I think that interchange out there is what Mr. Frankhouse referred to as the golden domino, no matter which steps we take.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
the only thing that we're guaranteed is if we do not build that intersection up, the only dominoes that will fall behind it are none. So.
Yep.
yeah.
Just to add on to that electric charger, that's the first time I've heard that idea, and I think that is brilliant because I know that people plan, when they're planning to drive somewhere, they look ahead and they know where they need to go, and that's gonna, and then they're there for a while. They're there. They're gonna
Exactly.
get some food or do something. And I think the closest one to us is clear out on the outside of Mount Gilead, like on your way to think Fredericktown. So that could really be a game changer.
SRS has one.
So anyways, I was just joking around because I know I can see Mark's listening in. I think he's not. We had one committee meeting on it. There's some questions. It was challenged. We had some communication issues with the guy presenting. So anyways, I'm just trying to keep light of it. What I do in all seriousness though is what you said, Doc. It is some folks, like when you put together a complex project, and I think all of us had certain experience with that, you realize that you have to put some big pieces in and some little pieces. And the folks that haven't had a chance to be part of accomplishing something complex and big think sometimes that it's all one big solution. It's like, no, not really. We're going to make this free center that the people who want to see it, we're going to make it happen, 27 medium size and large funding sources. And so I think where I'm getting enthusiastic, as Aaron was saying, is, maybe we can put this together. And so we're not here tonight to talk about that $5 million question about freeze funds, but I think this helps us get, as you said, maybe a half hour ago, skin in the game with the city, that, we can take ourselves seriously when it comes to our commitment to the project. So
Aaron, do you
thanks
have
for
anything
listening.
else? Okay. Ms. Earlston?
I'm good.
Anything?
Nope, thank you.
Okay. If there is no other business, then I would like to set,
Vote that thing out, Doc.
say again?
Vote that ordinance out. Maybe
Oh,
that's
I'm
what
so
Julie was
sorry.
saying.
Yes, could I have
Yeah.
a motion? Could I have a motion, please, to move ordinance 2021-38 on to full council?
I'll make the motion to move
Mr. Ivy makes the
2021-38. Yep.
And I will second it.
Good. Ms. Earlston seconds.
Thanks.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. O'Leary.
Yeah.
Now, is there any?
It
other-
would be painful, Doc, to have to
Oh.
listen to me for 40 minutes and get nothing out of it. So hopefully this will take us forward.
That has happened before, so.
I know, stop it already.
Um,
I think the mayor, you're turning red.
Yeah, I am, my blood pressure.
Oh,
think he
It's
got
a good
nervous.
time to
That's
have
why
an
I
aneurysm.
A good
That's why I was
wrench.
raising my hand. It's like, oh, we didn't do anything with that.
No
Yeah.
more aneurysms.
No, one in a lifetime.
Amen.
Okay, so we've already established there is no other business, even though it was out of order. The next meeting, we're going to set for May 19th. Is that the correct date, Julie?
Yes, that is,
Right.
yeah.
Um, At 7 PM. May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
Motion to adjourn?
Oh,
I'll
Ms.
second.
Olson makes the motion and Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the meeting is adjourned at 8:01.
Have a
Thank
great
you,
night,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.